just so we can share it, amongst people. If, there's ever anything that we say in here that somebody doesn't want shared, just let me know and we will, we'll make sure that it doesn't get out. This is a learning community. It's informal. We want to share a lot of things. We want fellowship. So encourage people to collaborate even outside of this. And if there's ever a time that you want somebody to come in, or if you want to share something, please let us know as well. Okay, today we're going to continue talking about coaching language. We're going to talk about positioning and feedback today. That'll be a precursor for the next get together in 2 weeks when we actually talk about specific types of feedback. And then our headliners today are our crew from the Penn State Sports Analytics Club. So we got Sapre and Mallet on the call. So again, very informal. If anybody has anything want to add or want to interrupt or just pop in, please do so. All right, so when we first started, we wanted to break it into a small little section at the beginning, which is like a little 3 to 5 minute little intro, and then have a headliner at the end. Then the first project that we went on was like identifying what coach language was, what are specific terms, what are specific uses of language, because we as coaches are teachers and we're essentially impacting learning, and a lot of the environment that we create and the language we use impacts learning. So go to this thing. There's a teacher evaluation system. It's out of West Virginia. It was originally in the early 90s when they created this, but since that group of people at West Virginia have taken that to the coaching ranks. And story has it that they started evaluating Bob Huggins, the basketball coach. They put a video camera on him and essentially took a sample every 10 seconds of his behavior. And it's categorized within this Webview scale. And basically it takes what his behaviors are, what his feedback is, what his instruction is, or just overall presence, and it applies it to a category system so they can group how much time he spends in different types of things. And they've done it with other coaches as well. The two things I want to focus on today is the idea of general and specific observation. Okay, that's going to lead later into what we'll call different types of feedback. So general feedback versus specific feedback. But first, when we think about what general observation is, it's really going to be, let's just take like out on a field. It doesn't matter if it's a field sport, if it's a softball field or a lacrosse field. It does not matter what kind of field it is. It could be in a weight room. Okay, so can you guys see my mouse moving if I do that? Okay, so if C is the coach or the teacher and X's are the athletes, general observation may exist in this placement right here, where the C, the coach, is, in a distance. It's not really proximal to the athletes, but I'm just making sure the environment is safe. I'm making sure that the vibe is conducive to learning. And at the end of the day, I'm not really providing a lot of feedback. There may be some encouragement in there, but I'm just assessing. I'm evaluating the whole scene. Conversely, specific observation may place this coach in this setting here, moving within the athletes. In this setting right here, the coach may move in and out of the athletes. The key is the proximity of the coach. So as this coach moves around, I have the ability to get really close to an athlete, maybe not in COVID, but sometimes hands on an athlete if I have to manually manipulate that person. And it's just allowing me to have more specific and focused feedback and teaching to that athlete, okay? So biggest thing here is we want to focus on one, where we're standing, and two, the types of or opportunities that we may have to give feedback relative to performance, okay? Quick snippet about that, just thinking about placement this week. In 2 weeks, we're going to take this exact thing and we're going to morph it into what general feedback is, or also known sometimes as encouragement, versus specific feedback that is targeted to reinforce a behavior or change a behavior. Okay, now we'll turn it over to Sapre and Mallet. You guys can share the screen. I'll let you guys introduce yourself, but just a little intro on how we kind of got to know these guys. Worked with Sapre here and Mallet as well but had the opportunity to meet those when I first got here last year. They had previously worked for Dave Hamilton and the crew as well, but they're really intriguing young guys. I think we can really employ them, and at the end of this, we'll encourage them to provide their contact information. So if anybody else wants to get involved with these guys, it would be a really big deal. But Samir and Mallet, if you guys want to take the show, man, I'm going to let you share your screen here, and you should be good to go.
All right, sweet. Thank you so much, Nelly. Hey, everybody. Actually, let me just share my screen real quick. Can you guys see our PowerPoint? All right, sweet. Yeah, if there are any like issues, just let me know during the presentation. But yeah, my name is Samir Sapre. I am the vice president of the Sports Analytics Club here at Penn State. Mallet, who's going to be presenting as well, is our president. Just a little background about me. As Nelly said, I've been fortunate enough to be working with sports science for now almost a couple years. I just actually finished my bachelor's in data science last spring. And right now I am currently a master's student in applied statistics at Penn State. Also been able to work in the industry as well with different like internships. For example, like got to work with Mars Wrigley. If you guys are familiar with like the candy and gum company, have gotten some pretty valuable experience there as well. But Mallet, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Mallet James. I'm the president of Penn State Sports Analytics Club. I'm a senior currently at Penn State studying data science. I'll be graduating in the spring with a degree in applied data science. Really happy to be here. I've been fortunate to work with some of our teams in performance and learning about how we collect data. Also have some experience in the field. I've interned at PPG and their machine learning and AI team the past 2 summers. So really excited to be here and share a little bit about what we do.
All right, cool. So with our club, it's pretty new within the last couple of years, but we do have definitely like a defined set of goals and a mission that we try to accomplish. First and foremost, we're definitely there to educate not only our members within the club, but those outside of the club. We really want to help our members especially develop sort of like the technical skills through application in sports. One of the reasons we get into this is because for one, it helps us with our schoolwork because we get to work on projects we're really passionate about and develop the skills that help us in our academic and professional lives. We're also there to provide sort of like a creative outlet really for our members and provide really the opportunities to actually work on our like creative problem solving skills because at the end of the day, that's really what the projects we get involved with sort of entail.
Yeah, and then just one other thing to touch on the education piece. I think when you come to school and start learning about stats, data science, whatever it may be, when you really can find an area that you enjoy to apply yourself, it makes it so much easier to learn the concepts, whether it's programming or just things in stats such as modeling. If you can apply it to something that you enjoy and find a way to really get into it in your free time, it makes it so much easier and it makes it fun. So I think that joining the club and being involved with us gives students that are interested in sports a way to apply it to what they're doing in school, which I think is very valuable. And then another big part of our club is creating discussion, whether that's in club meetings or outside of meetings. We all kind of create this group that you can contact at any time to talk about sports and examine sports through an analytical lens. We've just started to work on an NFL research project within the club that students have been presenting on different things that they find, whether it's tendencies in teams from last week or things in quarterback play, just to really get everybody involved and discuss what they're seeing in meetings. And then collaboration is huge too. We're interested in bringing in everybody, not only students with a technical background, but students in journalism, College of Comm. Anybody that's interested in sports can really have a huge role in sports analytics in the club. And then we're very interested in working with Penn State sports teams and other university research groups. I think we can provide a lot of benefit. And obviously you guys allowing us to work with you would be huge and really gives us a great place to showcase some of our work.
All right, so before we actually get into like what we've been doing, some of our work, I think it'd be really interesting or really useful to kind of go over like what analytics means, what it is, and maybe some of the common like misconceptions of exactly what it is. So to start off, we can go over like what it's not. It's definitely not purely like technical, not purely like math, stat, programming based. As Mallet mentioned, a lot of our members are from sort of like a diverse academic background. This really helps us because actually doing the projects we need require a lot of like, again, creative problem solving, really thinking about different issues or problems from a different perspective. And that's really what our club and actually other clubs around the country hope to get at. Also, it's not there to answer everything. I think Jake touched on this very well last meeting. It is definitely just one part of the toolkit, especially, I should say, not just in sports, but pretty much in every other industry that like me and Mallet have worked in. Again, it's not one size fits all. Definitely requires a lot of context, as everything naturally does. Finding where you can use some of these statistical and mathematical techniques is super important, regardless of what project you're working on, what group you're working with. Again, it really depends. And then finally, it's not supposed to be 100% certain. What that means is you're not always going to get the right answer. And a lot of times you're going to be working with problems where there's not necessarily a right answer. It's all really about just chipping away at that uncertainty. I think there are a lot of different areas in sports and otherwise where you're going to find things are just inherently uncertain, and you're not going to always get the right answer all the time. And again, analytics is just a way to kind of look at things differently and take away some of that uncertainty.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to add quickly, kind of what it means to me. I think analytics offers unbiased added value. So maybe at the end of a basketball game, you see a defender make a huge block, and crowd goes wild, and everybody remembers that play. But maybe that player kind of had a lousy game as a whole, and then there was another player that was forcing a lot of turnovers, doing a lot of small things. And I think that we can recognize that player a little bit better by going back and looking at the data and maybe seeing what he contributed. And then many small improvements whose some are truly impactful. So a good example, Shane Battier shared recently a piece in The Undefeated about how he went about guarding Kobe Bryant. And he said that if he forced him to his left, 40% of the time he'd be successful. Whereas if he was going to let him go right, 70% of the time he'd be successful. So you obviously want to go for that 40% of the time, but there's no saying that he's not going to score with his left. You just want to do that as many times as you can, so that you can be successful in the long run, and not just let him go to the side where he scores the most. So I think it's kind of realizing those things and seeing where we can give added benefit through recognizing those small points.
Well put. Next, I think we're gonna kind of get into a few types of analytics. I think, we draw a lot from the business world in terms of, the use cases, where this can be helpful, not just to you guys, but really to anybody. I think a lot of you might be familiar with some of the descriptive diagnostic aspects of actually using data. So like going back, seeing exactly what happened, maybe using some of your domain knowledge to figure out why it happened. But these are, some of the questions you can answer using like descriptive diagnostic analytics, things like dashboards, reports, things like that. Next, you start getting more into your like predictive analytics, like what might happen, when it might happen. This is kind of using more advanced methods, which, we've been fortunate enough to get into. We'll talk about that in the next few slides. And then finally, prescriptive, this is pretty, how should I say, this like really combines like both the domain knowledge and the advanced statistical methods to try and figure out like, what should we do? What can we do? If you look, in industry, you might see things like, if you guys are familiar with like Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, like how do they come up with those recommendation systems? They use prescriptive analytics, things like that.
And then before we get into some of the work we've done with Penn State teams, just wanted to share some projects that we've done in our free time. So I know something that I'm really into is NCAA basketball, and I was trying to create a prediction model for the NCAA tournament, and I was trying to think of a way or come up with a stat that nobody really thought of and use in a model. And I thought of how timeout. I read a paper about timeouts and how they can impact play in the NCAA tournament. So I went back and looked at some play-by-play data and tried to figure out how teams performed out of elected timeouts that they called. So I broke that down and looked at just the Big Ten. And as you can see, Maryland performs very well compared to their opponents out of timeouts, whereas a team like Minnesota didn't perform as well. And then added this to my model for all Division I teams, and saw that it did add some benefit to the model. So I was very happy with that. And then Samir has worked on a project with NBA player career trajectories. So as you can see in his work, players like Steph Curry kind of shows that he may not have all that many All-NBA selections left, whereas some younger players have a lot more to look forward to down the line. So that was just a kind of a cool predictive project that he worked on.
We've also, like, as I said, had the fortunate opportunity to get to work with Penn State's athletic teams. Some of the cool projects we've been able to do in football is actually diving into the data, looking at how practice times kind of affect different measurements gained from force plates. For example, the graph to the left kind of shows just one of the measurements we use sometimes to assess athlete fatigue. I think this is flight time, contraction time. But what's really cool here is besides just doing some of the like basic graphs, we've been able to apply like some of the more advanced statistical tests used in some of our classes or taught to us in some of our classes. In this case, at least with football, we were able to use an analysis of variance, also known as ANOVA. On the right, we have some a model that we actually used on TrackMan data through our club to build a tool to evaluate or try to evaluate catchers. Definitely not perfect, but it's really cool to see, you know, how certain catchers performed in terms of what the expected pitch call should have been.
And then on to a little bit of my work that I've been really fortunate to work with the track and field team and some of their wellness and performance data. So at the end of the indoor season last year, the trainers that I worked with asked me if I could put together kind of an end of the indoor season summary on how the season went and see if we could see how wellness impacted performance. So what I viewed it as was a really good data integration problem. It's something that all of our teachers talk about a lot, is using data from one source and combining it with data from another source. So TFERS is a public website that tracks all of the meet results from the indoor season. And what I did was add in our wellness data to see if that had any impact on how well we performed on the track. So the left graph just kind of shows relative performance between women's track groups and how they progressed throughout the season. So lower and lower event group rank scores are better. So started out kind of high, but as you would like to see, got better as the indoor season went on. So that was nice, and gave graphs like this for all of our groups to see how maybe we could improve from week to week, and maybe go back and look at what we did and maybe didn't do. And then the most kind of fun and open-ended piece of the project was to see how wellness impacted our performance. So wellness consists of many things: nutrition, sleep, freshness, hydration, and stress scores. And we saw after fitting a model that nutrition really contributed to a lot to how well we performed on the track. So this is just one example of throws. The group of throws athletes that scored highly on nutrition score performed a lot better than those who were low in nutrition score. So nutrition score is a value from 1 to 5. We scored low values as 1, 2, and 3, and then those that scored 4 and 5 were considered high. So their performance was better than those who scored low on nutrition score. So it was interesting to kind of see how that piece of wellness impacted our performance on the track, and how some maybe didn't impact it as much. But that is just kind of an example of just we have one season of data. This is nothing, no major conclusion yet, but it's cool to see how that we can start to form something out of what we were measuring last year. And then just as at the end, just wanted to share that it's not just Samir and I. We're a club of over 70 students that are really interested in being involved with sports and sports research. So we have projects such as unbiased rankings of college football teams by one of our members. One of our members created a whole website around advanced IndyCar stats and analytics that's gotten some attention from crew chiefs, which has been really cool. He does some really great things with ELO ratings in IndyCar. Then we have some work in optimization of MLB pitching staffs. So just so many interests and so many really cool projects that we've gotten to work on so far.
Sure. Yeah, so that's about it for our presentation. Hopefully we provided like some insight on, how to use maybe like descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics, as well as like some of the things we've been able to do within our club and even amongst ourselves. So again, like our contact is right here. If there are any questions you guys have, or anything you think we might be able to help you with, like always feel free to reach out. We're always, open.
Definitely. Yeah, just thanks for having us. I think this is a
Yeah,
great
for sure.
opportunity for us to share the club.
Really appreciate you guys. Does anyone on the call, does anybody have any questions at all for these guys?
Yeah, I have a quick question. What looking at analytic kind of programs, what are you guys using? Like, do you guys use sports code into R or SPSS? Like, what are you guys using with sports analytics?
I would say it depends. That's a good question. It really depends on, I guess, the person's comfort level. I think like Mallet mentioned, we do have obviously a lot of kids in our group. So I would say the prevailing sort of like software we use is R and Python, mainly because for one thing, it's free to use, but they're also super versatile in like what you can do in terms of visualization, statistical analysis, machine learning, things like that.
Cool. So from our end, if we were to send you, what would because I think sports code can talk to R, maybe, I'm not sure, but I work with field hockey, but I know we have a couple other platforms that we work with. I think we work with Exos, and maybe another one. If we were to send you kind of our data sets from some of our games, what would be the easiest way to send it to you guys? Or would it be more so connecting with a student, bring them in, kind of getting them upskilled on kind of scripting and how we want to look at it through sports code, and then go from there? Like, what would be the easiest way to do it?
So we can definitely like help you out with raw data. Like if you have raw data just from like downloading say like Excel or CSV files, like we can definitely help you out with that. If you want to work one-on-one with students, that might work well as well. Just to help you, like if you want someone, just more in tune with what you guys are trying to do, then like we will obviously like have a lot of students that would want to do that. But like either way, whatever works for you, we can definitely figure something out.
Cool. Awesome.
If
Thanks,
I can,
man.
let me, I think that's a great question, Stu. And I think if we can, I want to back that up just a little bit more. How Samir and Mallet, let's say before there was an exchange of information, can you talk about the process of maybe, development of a question? What are we trying to, what kind of approach are we taking? How do we, approach you guys with a question?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, and Mallet, you can chime in on this. Just from our experience, whether it be like with sports teams or with an actual like company, the development of the actual like question is honestly probably the most important part of the analysis. So it does take sort of like a lot of collaboration on both our ends. For one thing, or I should say from the coach's perspective, like coming up with maybe some of their goals, some of like the questions they might have, regardless of the data they're using. This might help us as like an analyst get an idea of, for one thing, what data we need, and, how we can put sort of those statistical tests, those statistical methods to use.
Yeah, and I just wanted to chime in quickly. So when I started working with Track, I knew they showed me all of this data, shared big Excel files with me, and then we kind of just like sat down and talked through. Maybe we just start by making dashboards to show what the data actually looks like, whether it be in tables or with some graphs and charts, and then it kind of once I figured out what was in the data, and they kind of gave me feedback to what I created. With some of the base data, we thought maybe we can apply this to this area. Maybe we can make like player rankings, be more predictive with it. I think it's just really starting and introducing whoever you're working with to the raw data. And then once you guys start getting a feel for how you're going to go about presenting it, I think you can answer some more questions and really know what angle you want to attack it with.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Anybody else? So we'll always try to keep this at 30 minutes. We'll keep this extended, but we are at the 30-minute mark. So if anybody's got to check out, feel free to. If anybody wants to stay on, we can go in any direction. We'll keep this running for a second, but just wanted to thank Samir and Mallet. Really appreciate you guys.
Thanks,
We
man.
really respect you guys. We talk about y'all often. If anybody on the call wants to link up with you guys, I encourage everybody on the call to, their email is right here. If Flurry, myself, or anybody in our crew can help facilitate that, please let us know. If anybody on the call wants to explore potential topics in this in the future, so far we've talked about language, we've talked about GPS, we've talked about training following COVID. Nick Yonko from nutrition will be on here next. But if there's specific directions we want to guide this conversation in the future, please let me know. And the last thing is November 4th will be our next one, and it will be Nick from nutrition. But we'll keep this on if anybody wants to stay. If not, thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Stu. Good to see you, man. Thank
You too,
everybody
mate.
for being here.
Hey, Josh, I had a question that I forgot to ask like way back the first time.
Yes, sir. What you got, Tuck?
So I'm a controversial person, right? I'm always pushing the envelope and asking the difficult questions. And sometimes people get pissed off at me when I do that. So this is going to be one of those questions.
Okay.
In our return